So, you've played Skyrim and immediately regretted your continued chronically poor choices in life, not because the main quest is bad, which it is, not because the Civil War is the worst, most boring depiction of the single most horrific crisis a nation can go through, which it also is, not because the vast amount of tasteful Lovers Labs mods you've installed have permanently altered your brain chemistry, which it has. Incidentally, you will enjoy the videos on this channel. No, you were disappointed by Skyrim because of the lack of racism. Now, as a casual racist hoping to go pro by next year, there are a few contenders for Tamriel's prized bigot of the year in Skyrim, but nothing comes close to the sheer amount of prejudice, xenophobia, and racial chauvinism present in Daggerfall and, most importantly, Morrowind. For Dunmer, racism is a way of life, as natural as breathing, magic, and whipping out of order Argonians. But what about the Nords in Skyrim? The elderscrolls roughly present three playable racial groups: men, good, virtuous, stalwart, mere or elves or knife ears, malevolent, conniving, chauvinistic, and finally beast folk, abhorrent, disgusting, yet aerodynamic. So it would track that Skyrim, the ancestral homeland of the Nords since Ysgramor, peacefully requested the native populace to piss off, would have its fair share of hate towards mare and beast. Remembering, of course, that the fine art of catgirl loving is ratified deep in Nord lore, just don't talk about it in public. But how does racism look in Skyrim then? Fortunately, the game does provide a scant few Nord standouts, which is best categorized in three subgroups. First, your casual racism. Grelka, a Nord merchant in Riften, exemplifies the casual spirit of xenophobia the best. The Civil War has made Septims hard to come by, and Riften is de facto run by the Gilf Mafia, further taxing the few imperial shekels she manages to scrape together, necessitating her living in Helga's bunkhouse, a shared ghetto accommodation house where Grelka is noteworthy for being the only Nord sorry enough to live in such squalid conditions. A condition she is well aware of.
Hey, Greenskin, close your mouth. Some of us are trying to eat over here.
There's no need to be rude, Grelka. If you don't care for Argonians, then perhaps you should take residence somewhere else.
Or perhaps you should crawl back into whatever swamp you came from, lizard man.
This is your classic skin tone journey back to whence you came rhetoric, shared by a few other Nords like Hilda, Ilda Early Dawn, or Bubba from the Tulsa Hold down south. Clearly, mostly lower class Nords, forced by circumstance to live shoulder to shoulder with Dunmer, Argonians, and, tell us forgive me, High Elves. An obvious showcase of prejudice being materialized by economic insecurity and Argonians being ugly. Then you have your competitive racism.
Watch out, some grayskin doesn't pick your pocket. Only thing I hate worse than those scalebacks are them filthy grayskins. This place reeks of grayskin filth.
Basically, every single word out of Rolff Stonefist's mouth would be breaking the terms of service of the Tamrielic version of YouTube. He legitimately doesn't have a single conversation that doesn't branch into his vitriolic hate of Dark Elves. His entire daily schedule is literally drinking until nighttime, then screaming obscenities at the Dark Elves in the ghetto quarter until 4 AM. He is even willing to brawl you on the back of his ideology of Dunmer dunking. Rolff Stonefist is the easy pick for most racist Nord, and definitely my go-to, but something feels off. Rolff has no power. He's a drunk bum who spends his entire day either drinking in Candlehearth Hall or micromanaging his xenophobia. Great xenophobes in elderscrolls aren't just interested in the micro level. You think the great houses and the tribe unmourned aren't affecting political changes at the macro level? Hence, Ulfric Stormcloak is an interesting character. If you go through his dialogue, there isn't a single instance of a derogatory slur, drinker, not even milk drinker. However, policies in Windhelm, such as Argonians not being allowed to live within the castle walls, instead being segregated to live in a hovel on the docks, or the Dark Elves living in the Grey Quarters ghetto, or the whole Markarth Incident, where Ulfric allegedly kinda sorta purged and executed a bunch of Reachman natives and non-combatant native sympathizers. I still have to give the crown to Rolff Stonefist, based on his entire character existence and schedule being hating foreigners. And drinking, I guess. I mean, the guy doesn't even sleep. Also, Ulfric still allows the Dark Elves to remain in his city. They arrived some 200 years ago during the Red Mountain eruption and still get to live in Windhelm. I mean, yeah, they live in a segregated ghetto, but I don't see any refugees being welcome in Solitude. Eliseth. It's a shame that Bethesda didn't have the balls to explore the racial conflicts in-game further with Ulfric. The main story of Skyrim comes across as so toothless, as a half-measure showcase of a conflict started on the basis of perceived mere supremacy. Now, you might be asking, why emphasize racism in the Elder Scrolls setting? I believe strongly that xenophobia is a central part of Elder Scrolls lore and world building. Now, before you report me to Susan, let me explain. It's not about getting reaction images and cheap laughs, although sometimes it is. The persuasion and disposition of the native populace, Dwemer notwithstanding, in a Tamrielic region showcases a cross-section of the cultural paradigm in your setting at that point in time. Unless we are interested in defanging the spicier aspects of a setting as rich in lore as Elder Scrolls, we must guard the xenophobia, water the xenophobia, and ultimately cherish the xenophobia, since the racial split is such a deeply embedded trope in Elder Scrolls and the cause of so many conflicts. Nations, societies, tribes never exist in a vacuum. Be it casual, institutional, or propagandistic, racism and prejudice shapes trade laws, religion, migration, and much, much more. Who is the discriminator and the discriminated? The hierarchy and power map of the setting is revealed by asking this question. Vis-a-vis Argonians as farm tools in Morrowind and the Khajiit barred from entrance to any hold in Skyrim. It isn't about caricature or mockery, except when talking about orcs, of course. It's about authenticity and the weight in your setting. Don't defang, file down edges, and otherwise neuter the cultural clashes in the coming Elder Scrolls games. World-building elements like Ulfric allowing the Dunmer refugees who came to live in Windhelm 200 years ago during the Red Year, despite being the leader of a hyper-national movement, to remain in Windhelm even as the Jarl, is still debated as an ambiguous topic a decade and a half later, even with the main quest being as shallow as it is. Don't neuter the Elder Scrolls setting, Todd. Oh, and shout out to Lydia for having a slur for every occasion.
Die, you orc filth! You should have stayed in your precious forests, elf. Skyrim belongs to the Nords!
That's why I married you. Alright, that was a video. Support links down below, Patreon and YouTube membership, with a free video up on Patreon. Like, subscribe, throw me a comment, I read everything. Check out my other videos of similar quality. Until next time.